No one wanted me to do this. They, in fact, probably did not want me to do this. It made it so much more difficult for crits.
Thank Pog! It's Friday. It's Friday, everybody, and that means it's time for the #1 Pogcast about all things Pogs. In Paraguay, according to the iTunes charts, from slammers to milk caps, from branded Pogs to coveted collectible slammers from that most prestigious of manufacturers, Poison, that fetch north of $16 and change on the open market, we cover them all because Pogs are back and better than ever. I'm Sean Schumacher, and joining us today on the Pog, sharing his favorite Pog memories and hottest gameplay tips. You may know him as a designer, artist, developer, game creator, and wearer of many other hats, who's done work for the likes of CNN, the History Channel, AIGA New York, and many more. You may also know him as a professor of interaction design here in the Portland State University Graphic Design program. And his latest project was scoring, editing, and designing for the feature-length horror comedy Happy Ending with his wife, writer-director Jennifer Wolf, which you can stream for yourself later this month. It's the tireless Thom Hines.
Hey, everyone. I thought this was a Marvel podcast.
Well,
I am wholly unprepared to talk about Pogs at length.
I'm just glad you didn't say Jax, because if you'd say Jax, I would have shown you the door right now.
Both of them, along with banana peels, are comedy gold, though. A missed opportunity.
That's true. If you need to stop someone, from getting away from a old-timey bank robbery in which, sort of they're wearing a domino mask across their eyes, stepping on Jax or a banana peel, there's no better way to do it. Pogs do not share their affinity for stopping crime. Pogs are usually used to cause crime, I found.
Right. Yes, exactly. They are the offender's weapon.
Yeah, and we've already learned, I think, definitely from this that, Pogs are just like money in the bank. Again, the highest priced single Pog that I could find on eBay before doing this was $16.77. So really, just like lighting up the economy right now.
Are you talking about Pogs or slammers?
Great question. A great question. I think many people get those confused. And I think many people might also think there might be a third piece of Pog terminology out there that people are like dying to hear me say. And in researching Pogs, what I learned is that there isn't. It really is just Pogs and slammers, the only two bits of Pog terminology there is.
It was sophisticated, but mostly within the culture of the game more than necessarily the mechanics or the pieces.
Truly. And you as a game maker, I think, can really appreciate that. Pogs are, I think, the perfect game in that they're so simple and yet also such a waste of time and money. And that's why we love them here on Thank Pog, It's Friday, the #1 Pogcast in Paraguay, unless they're bad now, which I didn't care to look into. Best not to think about any of that. Anyway, I'm starting to think, though, I might be deflecting a little bit. Normally, and I think the way that I did ask you to be on this show was for a different show called Did I Do That? Not a Pog-themed show. And I may be, kind of suffering through some trauma as of late with regards to that program. And I think maybe I just need to like HBO Max myself back to the original. The easiest way, to get past something is to go through it. So let's just go through it because
give the people what they want.
Yeah. And there's nothing that could be hotter in podcasting than true crime, which is actually what really happened. We both got hit in a incredible act of brazen theft here at the Art Building Annex.
The dead of night. Or maybe evening or early afternoon. Who knows? No witnesses.
No witnesses. Also, really no investigation, which was disappointing.
Yes, maybe there were witnesses. Just unfound witnesses.
I would say the investigation on the part of the facilities guys who were there to repair a grate was much greater than the actual campus investigation. But yeah, we the Rat's Nest, our beloved studio, which listeners will love when that sort of came into practice and they got to hear all the train sounds all the time. That's all just the Rat's Nest's ambiance. But yeah, I mean, both of our offices got broken into. The Rat's Nest's main computer went to computer heaven, I presume, based on the damage that was done to other computers.
Yeah. I don't think these were people who were looking to maintain the integrity of all the things they stole. Things were kind of just jacked.
Yeah, they burned a window, which I can't quite figure out what it was that they were trying to do there. That's not sort of a common theft technique. Also, when they were already in the room, so it's not like they were trying to get into it by like cutting a hole, like real,
like Mission Impossible laser style.
Exactly.
Okay.
They weren't trying to cut a big glass pog out of the window. The super slammer, I believe they call that. No, they just burned the inside for reasons that are unimaginable. They also pried up the back of a different iMac.
Trying to get the parts out of it?
I think they were maybe trying to get the leg off, but I think these are also the generation where the leg just comes off because they can be VESA mounted. So I don't really know what was accomplished, but I don't have high hopes that that computer is with us anymore.
Perhaps they heard that the files were in the computer.
They really wanted to have advanced copies of recordings of Did I Do That, which is pretty much the only thing that was on that computer to begin with. So it's a little bit of a disappointment. Like we are kind of shuffling things around. But Tom, you were gracious enough to kind of share a piece of your equipment that these thieves managed to break. Not even steal, but break.
I simply lent it to you so that I could get a shout out on the podcast while I'm here and sound like a hero at the very start of the show at the top.
Yeah, you deserve it because
Well,
I think
you.
the reason that
thank
people
you, everyone.
The reason people are hearing this is in no small part because of you. So I thank you. But we're both suffering through this loss. You lost a monitor.
A monitor.
Yeah.
Mine was far less grievous wound to my productivity and well-being. My rat's nest, which I call Rat's Nest 2.
There were also rats there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But it was mostly just shuffled around and things were kind of taken out of spaces. But I think I just don't have anything of value. It's been how I've run my life. Nothing to lose. I'm trying to be like James Dean or something here.
Yeah. We had another break-in during lockdown where somebody got into the third floor of the other art building. And I think realized that there was nothing worth taking and left empty-handed. And unfortunately, we had a couple more valuables this time, but yeah.
Right. Trying to make something here, folks.
What I did love, though, is one of the things that they got out in one of our classrooms. We have a very ancient G4 tower, one from the era that, Macs were graphite and clear plastic. And they managed to pull that out. I guess maybe to pair it with your monitor, I would have to think.
Yeah. These things are so outdated that they might fetch a pretty penny, though, on the Paraguayan Pog market websites, though. Things that are of an earlier era.
Pog resellers are very into vintage computing, at least, if the combination of both of those on all the tech channels that I watch that are also Pog channels are any indication. But yeah, it's I don't really know if they knew what they were doing or what's going on, but it feels if we're going to get robbed here, it feels like the most fitting way to do it, where it's just sort of a bumbling affair where nobody knows what's going on.
Burn the window, open up some stuff, look through some letters, and then leave.
Imagine going inside a room and closing the door and then being like, I know how to get out of this room. I'm going to burn a hole in this window. That makes perfect sense.
Yes. Yeah.
Why is this room that I'm in filling up with smoke? Oh, because I'm inside of it. Yes. Now it all makes sense.
You'll never learn if you don't try new things. This is maybe they thought they were innovators.
That's what we're all about here at Portland State is innovation.
Yes, exactly.
We're an innovation-based campus, but this is how we're innovating in new and interesting ways to be broken into.
Absolutely.
But Tom, you didn't come here to talk about break-ins or fads like pogs or podcasting. No, you came here to talk about your career, how you kind of got into design. Were you into making art as a kid?
Weirdly, a little, yes. I've been trying to reflect back on it, knowing that I was going to be on this show. And there were moments where I did that. Art class was something I really enjoyed. I really loved enjoying drawing, painting, that kind of stuff. But my mom worked at Intel, and so I really felt this draw also towards technology and towards being on computers. And it just seemed like there's so much more exciting things there. You had Peter Yue on the show recently. I didn't realize he was also doing electrical engineering at Oregon State before switching to graphic design, which is exactly what I did.
Really? So
yes.
you actually went down the tech path following your mom's footsteps at Intel.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was when you were still in high school, too. You had a high school job at Intel.
Yeah. I was working at this lab space where we were just building computers to test them, try out all their latest processors. It wasn't incredibly exciting, but we managed to build them fast enough that we also got to play video games on some of the most powerful machines that were around at the time, which was a little bit more of a perk.
Damn, that's actually probably the sweetest spot that a kid job could possibly be.
Yeah, it really worked out.
Like, how old were you at the time? Like
16, I think, when I started working there. And
oh, my God.
A year and a half there. And I did a few other jobs. I ended up following my mom to a couple other places. When she switched jobs, she managed to get me internships or places to find some opportunities to learn and work. But as I was expressing before we started, it was a lot of sitting around, playing solitaire, reading books. I don't know if they always knew how to utilize me. And with my ADHD, it was always hard to want to focus on just working on the same setup. For instance, I did quality assurance at one company for a little bit. And basically all you do for several hours in a row is just click on every single button, box, drop down on the website and try out every single combination. And I don't think I was ever really built for that.
No, it not quite as exciting as like QAing a game or something like that.
No,
Just
exactly. Yeah.
like industrial software.
Yes. Banking software. So it was very important.
Wow.
It was very important that we got it right, but it was also not something my 17-year-old self was all that interested in.
No, and you were showing me a little bit of what you were actually interested in a little earlier. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, I'll bring it back up. But yeah, I was in a band in high school, and I guess one of my creative outlets was making a little bit of music. I just wanted to, when I was a kid, try as many things as possible. In fact, I feel like I'm still that way as an adult. I'm a dabbler. One of my few LLCs is Dabble LLC, just because it seemed so apropos to the fact that I will try out anything a little bit and then get bored with it and want to try out something new that has the novelty factor brought back into it. But for some reason, just one day, I had no need to do this. My band had broken up a year before this.
Wait, so this is not even for an active band. This is a dead band.
This is a dead band. We had recorded some songs on my computer with one of those sort of compact computer pen microphones. The really chintzy ones that were, I don't know, like $2.
Just the lowest bit rate possible.
Yes.
Less than AM radio quality.
Yeah, absolutely. And it picked up only what it wanted to pick up. Whatever frequencies and angles it managed to muster, you could get some of that in there, maybe.
Yeah, you could get higher fidelity out of a walkie-talkie.
Absolutely.
And a kid's walkie-talkie at that.
But when we recorded, it was recognizably a song. So we went with it. And but I don't know.
Edison hears that and he's like, yes, it worked.
Yes.
Not well enough, but still. That's room for improvement.
I'm always aiming for the B+. Which, it's passing grade.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know why, but I think it was partially because I'd played through Solitaire, all of the 80 variations in my free shareware version of a solitaire game at the time, and I was just like, got something to do, maybe.
On this incredibly powerful computer.
Yes, absolutely. And so I opened up Microsoft Paint, and I got to work.
Great.
And
yeah, do you want to describe what it is that we're looking at a little bit here?
Okay, so I'm not exactly sure what got me to think about this and how to do this, because what's funny is this band I was in, named The Commercials.
Sure.
Actually had 4 members of it.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So, I mean, you were saying you were doing this all by hand in pixel art. So that's a lot of work.
Yeah, that might actually be. Yeah.
2 is probably the right number of members to render by hand in pixel art.
Yeah, maybe that's why I stopped.
Yeah.
I think you're probably right. But I'm positive that neither of the members here, Kyle and myself, owned these clothes. I don't know why I put myself in a zip-up hoodie, rather a button-up hoodie I can see now.
Your style's aged better. Kyle looks like the Scarecrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got a tiny beanie that's way too small for his head.
Is that yellow shirt got an apple on it?
It's got an apple on it.
Okay, all
right.
I
don't know why I thought apple for Kyle, but he, again, did not own a sweater that looked like this in any sort of way. I out of my own brain, with nothing else to go on, decided yellow sweater, big apple in the middle.
And sort of green clown pointy hat on top?
Yep.
But a really tiny one?
Yeah, kind of like the one that Link wears, but at actual size. We brought it from little baby Link up to a full-grown size adult human being. But I took the time to render the wrinkles in the clothes and even put shadows on these things.
That is the thing. It is very ambitious, especially considering this is all pixel art. There's no assistance.
I put small horizontal stripes on my shirt and rendered all of them as wobbly and wiggly.
Yeah.
Each one.
They're clearly following the curves of the wrinkles of the shirt, too. So, like, this is kind of advanced stuff, and you are doing it through the hardest possible medium to do it.
Yeah, and at this point, I don't remember the last time I had drawn or made anything visual for maybe 8 or 9 years. It'd been when I'd been forced to, maybe in an art class or something.
And that's all you have to set this up. And you're doing a great job of rendering the bodies. Now, there's also some type on here. The commercials is, of course, as it would have been at the time, the black letter style, rendered in gold. And to really sell that, you've got some very
1,
bright
2, 3,
reflections.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 flares. 9 flares on this. It's very shiny gold.
Again, you were rendering all these by hand, too, which does make me feel a little insane as to how much time that would have taken.
Yeah, I don't remember if it had a flare option. I don't think it
believe
does.
it did.
I think I just turned up the fuzziness on the brush to get
of
that.
Course.
Yeah, so I think I was able to do that at least. Or maybe those got added later on in Photoshop.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm sure I'd pirated at that point. But and then with
all your free time,
yes,
of course.
And you keep in mind the commercials was not a hardcore hip hop joint. It was a nerd rock band where we would wear lab coats and ties to our performances.
Now, what also makes that really interesting is, of course, the subtitle. Do you want to give us a little bit of that?
The original, I really want to emphasize, original gang banging, drug dealing, motherfucking gangsta butts. I don't know where I got the audacity to think that this would be appropriate or why but also I didn't think anyone would ever look at this.
No.
We're still in an audio format, so nobody is still looking at this.
Still no one has looked at it, which is the great, exciting thing about this inherently flawed idea for a podcast. But I think what I also love is like you are working at Intel making this. This band is from probably the gentlest part of the metro area.
Right.
If I'm being generous.
That's right. Yeah, a lot of cows and fields, and
especially at that time.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it was a 10-minute bike ride to be out in the middle of nowhere, which was. I don't know, a pastoral upbringing leads to something like this. I think you need to be bored a little bit as a kid. And I think that this was part of my outlet. Making the songs, also, we had songs like Can of Jackie Chan, where the start of the chorus was, whip out your can of Jackie Chan, because you're dealing with some mofos who are getting up on you. Something I definitely dealt with a lot as a AP student with only nerd friends playing video games and making other nerd songs.
Now, I've heard of Prince Albert in a can, but Jackie Chan in a can, that I feel like that's actually going to be a much hotter seller.
Right, absolutely. It's a little bit more aggressive, but also cool and funny.
Yeah, but you definitely can't take it on a plane. It's really, they've banned that, and I think for good reason.
Yeah, TSA will make you go home. They won't even let you get back in the airport.
Yeah, you don't want to just sadly dump your Jackie Chan in that weird water bucket, the big plastic barrel of other disowned Jackie Chans.
What a waste. What a waste that would be. Other songs, and I'm realizing a lot of them rhyme now. You can't OD on vitamin C. Frank,
so there's a health component to this as well.
Yes. Frank, the Italian Buddhist butt-wiping, cheese-eating Italian duck. I think I might have mixed those up a little bit, yes. Yeah.
I also don't think of ducks as having butts. So
they do.
I guess so.
There's a whole metaphor. What was the phrase? Tight as a.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Of course.
Behind. Yes. But It occurred to us as we were making this. That was the one song we as a band just wrote together, which was essentially us getting together in a very hot room, and our bassist, not featured on this album cover, hi Chris, shout out, we just decided making a song would be a good idea to do as a group, and it turned into that. And the choruses are, there were rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls, talking about toilet paper. There was poop and poop and poop and poop was like, it was clever stuff. It was very clever.
Well, it's good that you all share the songwriting credit on this, so you can all get the royalties.
Yes, exactly.
You don't want to have to trade songs like Lennon and McCartney.
No, and also, just think about the animosity that would happen that when this great wealth eventually comes in, no doubt that we would be bickering and fighting, that there would be something that would ever drive us apart.
What I do love, though, again, is that the band is already apart and has been apart for 2 entire years.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. There was no reason to make this whatsoever. There was
No.
no audience. This was hours of work for I don't know, for me to look at and say, hey, I could do that.
But you saved it also all these years, which is, I think, an interesting component because there are so many people that just don't have anything.
Funny you should say that. I didn't. The other guy in the album cover, he managed to find it and sent it to me 2 weeks ago when I was like, oh shit, I don't have anything for this podcast. This pogcast.
Well, but you sent it off, so
Yes, yes.
I mean, you were proud enough of it to try to get the band back together by sharing it out.
Yeah, it was unsuccessful.
Well-
No one wanted to come back, but it was all right. We'd all moved on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, the Sherman Bears had shut you down, I assume.
Yes, exactly. We realized that most of those avenues for royalties were closed to us.
Yeah.
But
You think Ducks are going to get in on our game? Us Bears, we're the ones who talk about wiping our asses on national television. Ducks don't do that.
that's right. Ducks are insurance.
Yeah.
Yes. Stay in your lane, ducks.
Oh, what a
Yeah.
wonderful world commercials have given us. So yeah, but this is where you're starting, and then you are going into a very different thing. You're following the other path into electrical engineering at Oregon State.
That's
back
right.
in Corvallis.
That's right. Yeah. A lot of my friends were tech nerds as well, video games and coding. I took a coding class when I was 12, and that got me going. I was really excited about that. I made my first video game was actually a video game for a social studies history class, something like that. But I made The Road to Monticello, and it was a Revolutionary War era board game that you could play.
Wow.
I made it in Visual Basic. You click to roll the dice, and your characters would move around the board.
Oh, see, Visual Basic.
Visual
yeah.
Basic.
I mean, I was making games in HyperCard in my younger days.
That was the way to go. That was the way to go.
It wasn't. There was a very small audience for it. The Mac shareware scene was not healthy, I would say, in my youth.
Right. Maybe HyperCard's time has come.
Yeah, maybe let's restart HyperCard, everybody.
Yeah, people are listening to vinyl again.
Yeah.
Maybe all the old things are having their time. But honestly, I kind of wish there was a HyperCard at this point.
It was a very accessible time for learning how to code. You weren't dealing with there being a new framework every other week that completely upends all your ideas of how code works and can be structured for no reason. You're able to, probably even read books, which, I mean, God.
Yes. Yeah. It was a skill that they taught me. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I use it every day. Yeah. But it was wonderful to have this kind of path that allowed for me to delve into the creativity, to have a mom who brought home computers, and we did have a 56K modem, first on the block. It was great, and I got to kind of explore these worlds, and they felt so fun and open. But like HyperCard, they also felt like they were accessible. They all felt like they were things that were really easy to wrap your head around. You didn't have to have this whole depth of knowledge of something existing. They were all built on mental models that we all came to it with.
Yeah.
HyperCard, like the fact that we're talking about physical things that you can actually imagine from the real world.
Beautifully tangible.
Yeah.
It's such a simple idea to convey, like, this is just a stack of cards, and you're just telling people where in the stack you are. There's no concept of pages or views or any of this other stuff.
Yeah. Which was sorely lacking in electrical engineering.
Yeah. Kind of the most opposite frame of mind. How long do you stay in electrical engineering before something else?
2 fucking years. It's a long 2 years. Yes. Yeah.
That's as long as the band was broken up before you made that art.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. In fact, the rest of this episode we will be discussing in 2-year increments.
Yeah.
So this was
our form of fortnight.
2000 to 2002.
Yeah.
Yes. Fortnights is Fort years. Dessa Fort years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Commercial years.
Oh yeah. Yes.
No, that's not working.
Post commercials.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought this was my path. It seemed like the way to go. It seemed like a thing that I was meant to do. I had been dabbling in other technical things. I had downloaded, quote unquote, Photoshop, but I also played around with
from your good friend Kazaa.
Yes, exactly. And
Mr. Kazaa was just visiting, and he brought you a wonderful gift.
Can't remember how many days it took to download that app, but
quite a few,
and how many times I had to download it too, because it took about 3 or 4. What were those? That they had these packages that would
the little
unpack the protections on Photoshop.
It would be split into parts, and then one of them would also be the key generator. Yes, RAR files.
Yes. Yeah, so it's a real fun. It's like a lion. Ooh, I never said it out loud like that. Roar. Yes. We were so much more fun about naming things. Do you remember Nero burning ROM?
Oh, sure, of course.
I mean, the Winamp really whoops the llama's ass.
Does it ever?
We had a lot of fun back then.
I mean, even the late stage of that, where iTunes had the CD, which ironically killed Nero, the CD recording button, then you would click it and it would just like iris open, and there would be this kind of nuclear thing that would spin as your CD was burning.
And the burnings, it did have that nuclear, the yellow and black.
Yeah.
3, danger.
The most destructive thing could possibly be.
Exactly.
You don't shut off your computer. Don't even look at it. God only knows how dangerous
I felt
this
like I was riding a motorcycle. I felt so cool when I pushed that button. No.
Well, you did have to have a license to burn a CD back then.
Yes.
I mean, not just anybody can do it.
Yeah.
You are realizing that electrical engineering is not right for you.
It took me a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that it was one of those things where I imagined that what I was doing every single day in electrical engineering would be the thing I was going to be doing every single day for the next 40 to 50 to 60 years. And it just got so depressing. I changed over to graphic design on what felt like a little bit of a whim.
Really?
Yeah. I had an interview scheduled on a Saturday morning at 9 a.m. to do this internship. At Oregon State, they had this system where you would do the first 2 years. A lot of people would go and do a year-long internship, finish up their last 2 years with some field experience under the belt, and then quite often that might lead to a job at said place. And
sounds great.
I feel like it was a really, really thought-out program. However, the alternative to getting up at 9 a.m. and going to this interview was staying up late and playing video games with my friends, which I wasn't the most irresponsible person. This was a very drastic choice for me to have made.
Yeah.
But I think I would just reached the breaking point and gone past it far enough that it felt like it was my kind of just hitting rock bottom and just not worrying about the consequences for a day.
The straw had already whipped the llama's ass, as it were.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it was rough for a minute, but then I felt so much elation when I did. Although I did get a call the next morning. I was woken from my slumber at 10:15 a.m. after having stayed up all night playing video games. And realizing like, oh no, it didn't even occur to me that they would be calling and that they would be the people on the phone.
Yeah.
I just answered the phone, a landline at the time. And when I realized who it was, I was like, oh, right. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I woke up with terribly sick. I'm just, I can't believe how bad I feel today. And I got nothing but sympathy from the other side. And they, in fact, offered to reschedule an interview for me. And I realized, okay, it's over now. And I had my opportunity to go back into the fold, but instead of said, that's okay, goodbye. And
wow. But you're living your truth. That's a dramatic moment to be like, this is weirdly kind of accidental, but this is where I have to draw the line.
Yeah. And I am not someone who usually does that. I am someone who likes to see things through.
Yeah.
And it felt like a big betrayal of all of the time I invested, of all of the support I'd gotten going down this path. The fact that my mom had set up all these opportunities for me. It just felt like it was shout out, Mom. I know she's listening right now.
Hi, Tom's mom.
Yes, yeah. In fact, if anything, you're going to see your numbers go up this week because she's going to tell every single one she knows, and she is going to be bragging about me to strangers in the street, people she runs across at work. It's going to...
Please, Tom's mom, download this on all your bot farms. She
already has.
It just makes my numbers go up. I love it.
She already has. You didn't even have to ask. Yeah. My mom's the best. But that said, she also was incredibly supportive when I decided to switch. She realized that, I had to do what made me happy, and it was wonderful to not feel like I was letting anyone down, and it felt great. It just so happened that I had a friend who was switching from computer science to graphic design.
Oh, of course.
I didn't even know it was an option. I had never even considered it.
Yeah.
But I had played around in some of these apps for a long time. It felt like it was going to be giving me the opportunity to do some stuff I felt really excited about. It also seemed like it was going to be so easy. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. Making album covers all day long. I could do that.
Sounds great.
Sounds so easy.
Especially compared to doing electrical engineering, which, no thanks.
No, well, the funny thing is I had way more all-nighters when I switched to graphic design than I ever had in electrical engineering. I misunderstood what was involved in graphic design.
Oh, yeah. You're saying goodbye to solvable problems.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I loved it. I loved it. I did find my own journey through that, though, as well, where I found myself at moments struggling with the idea that I'd be doing straight graphic design for the rest of my life. And that would just be me sitting at a different computer in a different cubicle in a different building. A cooler cubicle.
Absolutely.
With better decor. But
you're wearing a black turtleneck in this version.
Yes. I tried doing that recently. People questioned it. It was
there's a reason that my black turtleneck lives in the trash now.
Yes, yeah. No, I walked into a room and everyone just looked at me and stared, and I realized this is something I can never do again.
No.
But I just knew that doing one thing alone wasn't ever going to work for me. Which was wonderful because I did get some exposure to some new media classes, which were Shockwave and Flash, and I started dabbling more in HTML. And then before I left college, in my graphic design program, I started learning PHP. And so I actually did more coding when I switched to graphic design than I ever did in electrical engineering, where it was a lot more sort of math and stuff.
So that's a really good foundation for kind of what comes next. I mean, you do spend some time late in your Oregon State career, like doing some teaching assistantships even in these classes.
Yes. Amazing you know these things. This is eerie and wonderful.
I do my research.
That's incredible. Yeah, no, I did some teaching assistantships, and I even became the head consultant at the computer lab as the sort of instructor for the other consultants, the other staff there.
That's huge.
It was. And it was one of those things where I had actually applied for sort of the tech head consultant position, and I didn't get that one. But the boss pulled me aside and said, I appreciate you applying for this. This other guy's definitely better at this. But you might actually be a really good fit for this other job that we haven't even talked about yet that is opening up starting in the fall. And would you like it? And I couldn't believe my luck. I couldn't believe that I got to delve into all of these different apps. And I got to teach technical things. I got to teach how to help users connect via FTP to their web server spaces. I got to help them learn how to use the scanners and dozens of apps. And I got to come up with all these new lessons. So it was every single week, all school year long, I got to create these lessons. And it was just a fun, vibrant atmosphere. It felt like a party every week. It was like a 45-minute time where we all just got to hang out, and me and the boss would always kind of riff off each other. It was just fun. It was just such a wonderful experience. And I think it embedded the sense that teaching and that playing with new toys all the time is just exactly what I wanted to do. Is so fulfilling, so joy making. So I leaned into it, and I didn't end up going down the teaching path right away, but it was something that I thought, you know what, maybe at some point I would do that. I just got my degree in graphic design. I feel like I need to do something with that. But it wasn't very long before I realized, I do kind of want to teach, and I maybe need to make that happen.
Well, and that's a huge lesson to be leaving school with. Mm-hmm. But you don't stay in Corvallis. You move.
Yes.
Pretty much right away.
Yeah. My partner at the time, she wanted to teach, which was also, I think, a big impetus for me to even consider this thing. I need someone else to show me the paths before I can find them for myself. But
but that's I think going back even to the spirit of our community here, that is it's somebody else like helping you along. Like,
yeah. I think it's the dumbest thing in the world to think that you have to have every idea yourself or they don't count.
Yeah.
And it's something I encourage my students to consider all the time, and something I have to remind myself sometimes. But I get so pumped when I have a user test or I get some feedback from someone and they tell me 20 things that are wrong with it, because I used to just feel like this was a criticism of me as a person. But now I see it as free help, as a laundry list of things that I know how to work on. Oh my gosh, I don't have to decide which 20 things to work on anymore.
No.
I now know exactly which ones are the most important, the things that were most evident to the people I just showed it to. Great. Problem solved. I have a mission again.
Yeah.
And it's great.
It's almost like teamwork makes the dream work.
It's almost as if, but not quite.
Not quite, no.
Yes. Yeah. No. Dream work is a different thing.
Yeah. It's a movie studio that I believe doesn't exist anymore, but we don't need to worry about that.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. But nevertheless, teamwork, regardless of wherever it leads, and whatever studio ends up co-opting it, is going to probably benefit greatly from it.
Teamwork made the Shrek movie.
It absolutely did. Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
Yes.
but yeah, so you move.
I did. I moved to New York, which was
Big time.
yes,
Big Apple.
the biggest apple, bigger than even the apple on Kyle's sweater.
Which was fairly small. I mean, it was big for an apple on a shirt, but smaller than the New York apple.
On the apple, well, that one is probably bigger than 99.9% of the apples that exist in the world.
You know what? Fair enough.
Yes.
If I saw an apple like that in a store, I would be maybe a little scared.
Yeah. So
I would think it's probably pretty mealy.
I thought I was being pretty ambitious there with that apple. But okay, so there is a bigger apple. You make a good point. And it was a little bit of a trial by fire. It was a challenging time in some ways, but it opened up so many opportunities. At that point, I didn't have work. I didn't have any community there, so I didn't know kind of how to get started. Fortunately, as the guy who was doing websites in 2005, Oregon State, I had some friends and people who knew me from Oregon still who would occasionally send me some work, and I started doing a little bit of freelance and just randomly posting on Craigslist and getting jobs from Craigslist. But at some point, I don't exactly remember what led to this, but I applied for some jobs, and one of them happened to be at the New York chapter of AIGA, and I don't think I was really expecting it to be something that was so important to me at the time.
Yeah. Well, and that is like the chapter of AIGA too.
Yes. Yeah. They're housed in the same building as the whole national embodiment of the AIGA as a worldwide presence. They have their headquarters in that same building. And so we got to just be around that all the time. I got to meet so many incredibly famous, important, talented genius designers. I had dinner with Paula Scher.
Wow.
Yeah, I got to sit right across the table from her, and I just I couldn't believe that was happening. I went to a Christmas party in Debbie Millman's house. These things just don't happen to someone who's like that age and who didn't earn it in any sort of way.
Yeah.
I was just the web intern for the New York chapter of AIGA, but it gave me this access. And I'll have to admit, up until I was teaching there, I think I'd gotten a little bit disillusioned from graphic design as an idea.
A very common thing, I think, that happens to folks who are like immediately out of school.
Yeah. You burn yourself out so hard working so much on the stuff. By the time I was leaving, I think my last couple terms, I was probably doing all-nighters at least once a week. There were definitely times where I was doing multiple all-nighters in a row.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And it might just be bad time management skills, but I was working 20 hours a week at the computer lab.
Yeah.
I was married at the time. I also just cared too much about the work. And almost every project I got, I also turned into a Flash project. So make a poster. Other people got to just work in InDesign or Illustrator for a little bit and then be done. They all worked very hard too. But I would do that, and then I would turn it into something interactive, which was
oh my God,
asking for trouble. No one wanted me to do this. They, in fact, probably did not want me to do this. It made it so much more difficult for crits. Yes,
let's go over to this tiny screen, and everybody else had posters on Matboard, but this one's just a screen.
That's right. Please don't put your pins into this poster. This one is not going to accept them as well. But I don't know. I asked for trouble. I did everything the hard way, every step of the way. But I was able to be around these people. I was going to all these talks. I was around people who loved it and showed me again how wonderful it could be. It wasn't just people doing commercial work. In fact, a lot of the people who get involved with the AIGA, I think, obviously they have to pay the bills. They're doing that kind of work. But they also love the industry. They love what it can stand for so much that they got involved in this. And they want to be part of something. They want to make it something good and better. And that was really inspiring to me.
That is an incredible place to be, finding yourself. So you're building websites for them, and you're also working with cathode ray. And,
oh my gosh. Yeah, that lasted for a second. So as I said,
but you got some big client names out of that.
Yeah, I totally did. It was amazing that I got to work for television shows. I saw some stuff I had made on TV, which is really cool.
That's wild.
Yes, before I left, I didn't end up working on the final graphics for it, but I was working on some graphics for a Hugh Grant movie. And
what, really?
Yes, yeah. I can't even remember which one it is.
Like a little scene where he's using a computer
and
there's a fake interface that pops up.
I think it was something where they were working on a reality television show and they were seeing it on the screen. So we were making the fake graphics for a fake television show.
Wow.
And it's so funny to imagine because, you watch these shows and movies and you see like there's posters on the walls and you see all this decoration. And if a person watches a television show in a movie or a show, someone had to make this show, this meta show.
We have to come up with what the search engine that's not Google is that we're going to use.
Yes, exactly. And
is it Goggle? Is it Search?
That's right, yes.
Google?
Yes. Oh, gosh, I was just watching Dexter recently, and they had some of the funniest ones, like websearch.com.
That's playing with fire because I bet somebody owned websearch.com.
I bet they did, but there's something that was just like that's either too risky or just so on the nose that it was adorable.
Yeah,
they just, I don't know. But anyway, it was kind of amazing to see the inside of how that stuff works. And the guy who was the creative director there wanted me to stay. It was the best pay I'd ever gotten, probably better than any pay I've gotten since. It was an incredible experience, an incredible opportunity, but I don't know. I just felt so insecure still at that point. I was still so fresh out of school. I felt like what I was bringing to it was good. I could do some of it, but I just felt so stressed and like such an imposter so much that I kind of shied away from it. And I feel a little bit bad for not just sticking with it a little bit longer. But one other thing that I think will come up through the conversation today is just how often taking the wrong path ended up leading to a better place. Every path leads somewhere.
Yeah.
It's really hard to know what is going to be the outcome of whatever you do or learn. Doing coding for 10 years before changing majors seems like a bad idea or just a big waste of time. But I'm coding to this day. I'm still using those skills, and I'm using all of the failed projects along the way as stepping stones to make more interesting things that connect dots that I never would have been able to connect had I skipped any of them.
Yeah, really and truly. And I mean, the next dot along your journey, 2010, you're at Parsons.
Yes.
How does that happen? Like, how do you end up in grad school?
So I, at the end of my wife at the time's grad school, I was just like, I need to get out of New York. We'd gotten 10 years of living, so much great experience, but it's an exhausting place to be, especially if you're poor with so many student loans. It was just a grind.
I believe they call it the city that does not ever sleep. And you were already doing a lot of that on your own.
Yes.
So...
Yeah, it's not the clubs. It's just people with stress staying up, staring out the window. Everyone's just smoking their cigarettes.
Yeah.
Breathing it out the slightly open window so that the bartender doesn't notice, oh my God, I don't want to get caught. But...
so glamorous, everybody.
Yes. Yeah. Everyone should try it out.
Yeah.
I'm glad I was there, but I was so glad to leave. And at that point, we thought, okay, maybe we just head back west. West Coast vibe felt more like what we were looking for. We ended up going to a little bit of a road trip and then stopping in Montana for a bit. But then she got a job in Beirut, teaching at the American University of Beirut.
Wow. Okay. That's quite east.
Yes. Yeah. But it's so far west. And honestly, it's the west coast of the Middle East.
I suppose. You know what? Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It was wonderful. It was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Spent a year there, and it was wonderful. It was so restorative. The people there were so incredible. I wish I could go back to a time like that again. I think things have changed a lot, and the whole world is crazy at this point, but it was...
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah. Let's not mention what year it is, just so people can figure it out.
I don't know when this is getting published, so who knows?
Yeah. But it was a time of just like beautiful peace, and everyone was just their best selves, and it was so wonderful, and it was such an amazing place to just sort of be restored, I think, a little bit, and to feel engaged, and everyone there is just so smart. Everyone there's like PhD level intelligence. Maybe it's because we were associated with people through the university, but they're way smarter than people here. No, just kidding. But they were just so wonderful and warm and also brilliant. And so I just felt so inspired. But a couple times it happened when we were living in New York. The first time I had been asked if I wanted to teach, and then they found out, oh, you don't have your master's degree. Never mind. Something came up like that at the American University of Beirut. I had helped with some websites. I didn't have a green card there, so I couldn't work a lot.
Oh yeah, that's a bit of a delicate.
Yeah. And so it was one of those things, but they could give me one if I was a teacher there, and that was an idea that was floated. And then it was kind of, again, one of those things where after the first meeting, realizing, oh, no master's degree.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we can't do that here. But it was a wonderful thought, and it kind of lit this fire inside me to maybe do that. And so just sort of like, I'm sorry, I know we just got here, but I kind of feel like I need to get my degree so I can teach as well.
Wow.
Because I don't know, it just seemed like such a fulfilling thing of something I was called to do and I enjoyed so much. And I don't know why it was I applied to 3 schools, one in Washington State, SVA, and Parsons, both in New York. I think it was just sort of one of those things where let's just see what happens and see what's up. And if something turns out, maybe we'll take it.
Well, and you end up in Parsons like design and technology MFA, but like were those other programs also kind of hybrid technology and design, or were they more straight design?
The one in Washington, I wish I could remember which one it was. I don't think it was Washington University. I think it was Washington State. It was interaction design. And so it was going to be much more design focused.
Yeah.
SVA was also interaction design, but it felt a little bit more like an academic thing. And I think the thing that drew me to the Parsons one was just how hands-on and practical it was. I am not a very academic. I like making things.
Yeah.
I love being able to dabble and play with some stuff. And this program was just so wide-ranging. It was a large program, which enabled it to offer a crazy assortment of classes. They have game design contingent that is just massive. Some of like the most famous game designers teach there or have taught there, but they have such a stellar program. It was life-changing, the classes I took in game design there. Physical computing classes, so I got to make some things with circuits and lights and buttons and servo motors, the baby head kind of thing.
Yeah, do we want to talk about the baby head now?
It's an instrumental part of my time at Parsons. I think that now's the time.
Yeah, so do you want to... So basically the genesis of this is you have this class where you are tasked with making some sort of like interface that responds to input like through a sensor. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you and your teammate on this find a baby doll on the side of the road.
Yes, just one of those sort of plastic rubbery baby dolls. Very
haunted looking, I would say.
I think most dolls and clowns just by their very nature seem to express this. And this is no different. This isn't a sweet doll. This is not a Barbie doll.
No.
This is kind of just sort of like a pudgy, round in every space kind of just doll with dead eyes.
A real like Cupid type doll. Just in sort of how it cherubic is exactly the word.
Yeah. We turned it more into something a little bit demonic.
Yeah. Yeah. So you do you want to walk us through the process that you went through in designing this baby doll?
So one thing I want to just state up front is that as much sleep as I lost in undergrad, I lost 10 times as much in grad school.
Well, yeah.
It was a very intense time. So ideas were not questioned always. we sometimes moved forward without really thinking through like how other people might see what we're making. But my partner Andy and I, what's up, Andy?
Hi, Andy.
I'm sure Andy's listening too. I'm going to just tell everyone about this.
I love it.
Yeah. So Andy and I decided that we would take the head off of the baby doll. I think we cut off the legs as well. So
good.
We had a torso and a head. And then inside
no nightmare fuel here.
No. And then inside the cavities of both of these, we were able to put some servo motors that allowed for the head and body to kind of swivel back and forth. And
I don't know what I like less, the description or the word cavities.
Oh, I'm
Both
sorry.
Are bad.
Yeah, okay. I can't come up with a better one.
The correct word is the problem.
Yeah. Yes. There is no solution to this one.
It's the physical reality that's the issue here.
Yeah. The concave space within...
The tomb within the baby doll.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we had then hooked these two servo motor running body parts up to a computer that had a camera that could track a person's face. So as soon as it noticed that a person had walked in front of it, it would start following you with its head, and it would rotate in this very responsive but creaky, kind of just sort of jittery sort of way.
Exactly what you don't want.
Exactly what you don't want. Not from a baby doll. Not from anything, but baby dolls especially.
With a dowel with its arm sticking out of its chest.
I don't think we mentioned that part
yet.
No,
I don't think we have.
So, yes. So the head followed you. The body, though, would stay eerily still. The body
Isn't that better, everyone? That's great.
Yeah. You saw that there were these two things stuck into a very gross 2x4, very dingy. The body parts also themselves had been intentionally mucked up with like dinge. But
so that's not just from it being on the side of the
no,
road.
it was unfortunately too clean.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. It seems weird when like a precious baby doll did it, but if a
I guess
bad
so.
baby doll, like a dirty, naughty baby, no, this is getting weirder and weirder.
No.
See, there's no way to save this one.
No.
This was one of the things where we just shouldn't have done it, but it now exists, and we have to keep going.
It now exists and will outlive all of us.
Oh my gosh, yes, it will haunt me for the rest of my days.
That scene at the beginning of the Terminator movies where the Terminator foot steps on the human skull.
That's right.
It's actually going to be the baby doll arm on the dowel that does it. Yeah.
Oh.
Just slowly compressing.
Yes, well, and hopefully the skulls at that point are brittle enough, because this thing was pretty wobbly.
It's a movie. Of course, they're using breakaway skulls.
Yeah, oh,
You know, we don't want our prop to be injured in some way.
it's props too precious.
Yeah.
So the reason there was a dowel sticking out of the chest of this baby doll was because at the end of that dowel was its own arm with its little finger in like a gun shape, which was pretty cute. It was cute when it was still an embodied arm, not a disembodied one.
Uh-huh.
And we managed to hook a servo motor up out of the neck of the torso that was able to ratchet back rubber bands, kind of like a little Gatling gun sort of style, and it would launch rubber bands at you. But only if you stood still for a second. If you moved back and forth for a little bit, the head would follow you, and then after a moment of pausing, probably with a look of horror on your face, you would be almost always startled by this body rapidly aiming wherever it was coming from back to you. So now both parts are looking at you, and then you just hear this little whining, cranking servo motor sound as it wound the rubber band back and then launched it rapidly at you. And it didn't hurt. It was not a lot of pressure, but it felt so insulting.
Yeah, there's psychological damage that's being inflicted from this.
That's right. The thing that did this to you, look at it.
Yeah.
Look what happened to it, and it has disdain for you.
It's a two-pronged attack when you get right down to it, because you experience it visually and then you experience it physically as it attacks you.
It involves you.
Yes.
Yes. It's not a passive art piece.
Were the others that were for this class as...
0 of them. All of them were... Benign is pretty like... Some of them were clever and brilliant and beautiful and so thoughtful and poignant. Some of them were interesting and fun. This was the only one that leaned into the nightmare fuel.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, knowing what this program is, that you are meant to be experimenting, that you're meant to be creating interfaces that don't exist and ways of interacting that, you know, no one has thought of before. I can almost guarantee no one has thought of this before. So I would think that this is a very successful project in a way.
It was encouraged.
Yeah.
It was absolutely encouraged. And people were wildly amused. And I definitely felt wonderful about having made it. There's a reason. That's one of only a couple things I've brought in today. But is just because it was something that allowed for me to think through the user experience in a way.
Yeah.
And that also allowed for me to employ some fun code stuff. We just learned about sort of facial tracking and then incorporating that with the mathematics of figuring out angles and then translating that to the angle of these servo motors, which is all different translations, but all fun little puzzles that I got to solve with Andy, he had a computer science background. So we got to both kind of play in this playground for a little bit, and it just felt like we were doing it for no purpose other than the pleasure of doing it.
Yeah.
And that, I think, was really wonderful for me. I got a lot of wonderful moments in that program where we were encouraged to do things that were impractical. Almost no one made anything practical in this program, which was good for us, I think.
Yeah. Do you remember some of your other projects?
Let me see. I have a couple more here on the screen. I have a couple of videos. Oh, here they are. So I created...
You're so organized. You have literally links to a list in a Google Doc.
You're talking to someone who has both ADHD and no functional memory. I wrote these down as I remembered them because they would have been gone moments later.
Hey.
But I created a handful of fun little projects. One might be Inverted Tetris, which is a game that essentially allows for you to play Tetris kind of normal. the pieces fall from the sky and you press the up button to rotate them. However, when you press left and right, the pieces themselves do not move in space. You are now moving the entire world around them, which is a really, really difficult thing. You have to dissociate yourself from the piece. The piece is purely a thing you can rotate. You have no control over the piece. Otherwise, you have to control the entire world, which is the opposite of what you are thinking of. And all of the time you've spent playing Tetris, it is a real mind bender.
I am looking at this on screen, and there is something that is really, really like it. It almost feels like watching somebody understand the inverted controls of like flying a plane or something like that. Seeing the things like slide off the edge and then loop back around. I can't imagine actually playing. Like, it's got to be so hard.
It's so hard because the up and down buttons still rotate the piece.
Oh, God.
So you are still partially attached to that thing. And it was this interesting experiment in what we attach to, even when we aren't connecting to a character in a video game. If it's a completely abstract mechanism, it's still something where you now are thinking of yourself as that piece a little bit in order to be able to operate and move through this. But as soon as you break the two apart, your mind just can't handle it. I've never seen anyone do well at it. I never really got good at it.
I feel like that would baffle even Tetris champions.
I'm sure. Although I'm sure someone could master it, but it was too hard for me. It was too hard for me. Another thing I made, which was really dumb, was an in-person video chat, which is essentially, I don't know if most people know this, but an LCD screen, your pixels are essentially little windows.
Yeah.
And they can open up and close the red, green, and blue ports of the pixel. And the white that shows through is just when the window is fully open. And that's just the backlight shining through. So if you can separate that panel from the backlight, you can actually have a see-through screen where you can control the pixels and see it from both sides.
Oh my God, that's so strange.
So I bought
it's like ghostly too.
It really kind of creates this very different experience. It's not very practical. You have to physically be both in the same place to talk to each other, but you then type messages on the screen. One of them is backwards to you and the other is forwards to you, and you can read the message being typed to you from the other person, and they could read the thing that you're typing to. Anyway, again, why would this ever exist? There was no good reason for it. But I basically just had a disassembled monitor in my locker for like 3 months, just slowly trying to tweak it to get it to work without the back panel.
Yeah, prying off that backlight.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, I can't believe I got a monitor for $20 on Craigslist and managed to get it to work. And it was so fun to take it apart. The MFA Design and Technology program had just the whole, I think, 15th floor of a building right next to Union Square in Manhattan. And I just took over a table and started going. It was so fun because it took me a couple hours, and just everyone I knew from this big program would just come over and just hang out with me for a little bit, and they were all blown away. And it was so fun. I can't find it. I haven't seen it in a little bit, but a photo of the moment we first got it turning on, displaying stuff while also in this like really horrible disembodied, everything is just wires going everywhere. It seemed like such a mess, but this kind of magic of being able to put your hand behind it, see your hand, and also just play a video in front of it or do something that just looked interesting and weird.
I mean, there is kind of a weird dream interface to that, though, where like your screen can just become part of the environment and you don't have to have that separation where you lose what's behind it. Like that's such a beautiful thing. I also, though, like you had almost the perfect interface on it where you were just seeing the text. I can't imagine what a desktop would be on that, especially a two-sided desktop.
Yes. Yeah. Television and monitor companies have been trying to make these clear screens for a little while. And they've succeeded. They sell them, but they're the stupidest idea ever. They are not useful in any way. As soon as you put something on it, then you can't see what it is really. Because whatever's behind it interferes with whatever you're looking at. Unless you're putting it in front of an LED panel that's just a backlight, then what's the point? And at that point, you just put them back together.
If I recall, a lot of those basically have that. Or like a little, scrim that goes behind where it's just like, what are we doing here?
Right, yeah.
What is this? This is a $70,000 TV and this is just a little piece of fabric? What are we doing?
A $70,000 TV, that's worse than the $200 TV. Yes. Yeah, I loved playing in that space, and I think it was good for a dabbler like me, for someone who needs to have a lot of outlets to find ways to make things that aren't practical, but there's still that side of me. Yeah. I'm still someone who was drawn to electrical engineering for a reason, who chose design and not art, because I do really like thinking, oh, what does this mean? What is this for? This should do something. And so a lot of the projects I ended up working on in grad school or started in grad school were things like Tinker.
Oh, yes, which you were still like running up until a couple of years ago.
Yes. Yeah. I don't feel like there's a place for it in this world. And also I found out the hard way multiple times, running businesses and creating software companies is a lot more work than just making the thing.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of narrowed down to working on just one right now. But Tinker is a content management system. It is a way in which you can make and edit websites, but way before Squarespace. This is a decade before Squarespace had the ability to click in and edit your interface within what looks like the interface. I was making something that allowed for you to do exactly that. You would make a static HTML website.
Well, and that was the other thing. I actually managed to dig up the blog that you were keeping for this class where you talked about the other alternative projects that you were pitching in addition to Tinker. And in framing Tinker, you did bring up Beirut and how like that is a country with limited, especially at that time, limited internet. And so something that is this complex database, it's not going to be as good as something that is just using simple files on a server.
I feel scarred to this day about my year living in Beirut, not because it was terrible in any sort of way, but you essentially bought internet data like as phone cards.
Oh no.
And you get
no.
here's 2 gigabytes of data or something like that. It was pretty small amounts for a good amount of money. And
that's one website now.
That's
one visit to yahoo.com.
Oh my gosh, yes, exactly. And it was just so scary, especially when you were uploading, previewing a website, seeing if your changes worked and didn't. So there were so many times where I would make 12 changes, update them, check all 12 changes to see if I got anywhere closer. But coding is a lot of trial and error. There's no kind of punch cards anymore, so you can try things faster. Or so you think, until you go to Beirut and you realize that you have to at least be somewhat cognizant. If you reload the web page, every time you try to fix one little typo or one little error, you would burn through that data. In fact, I did burn through that data so fast the first couple of months when I kind of hadn't recognized that I needed to change my pattern a little bit.
Yeah, you're gonna have some AOL by the minute dial-up bills.
Yes, exactly. And so it got expensive to do my job.
Yeah.
But that said, when I was there, though, I recognized a lot of the limitations. Not just that data is expensive, but that some people just don't have a lot of access to it. And some people don't have access to setting up a database. Some people don't know what a web host is. There's so many barriers of entry for making something on the web. And
more every day.
Yeah, it's true to this day, even with Squarespace out there, which is something that, I love that it exists so that people can make things, but it still could be so frustrating. And if you have a limited budget, it could feel maybe out of reach.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to create, and I largely got there, aside from the fact that it requires constant maintenance to keep up to date with all of the newest stuff, a platform that allowed for you to essentially make any website into something that you, after logging in, could edit anything, any part of it.
It's so beautiful.
It's probably the thing I'm maybe most proud of having made. Just as a concept, it's something that I really believed in. I still think to this day that I would love to have this interface way more than any other interface that exists.
Yes. It's the interface that we should be using. I mean, and even to go back to, way, way back to Tim Berners-Lee, and like that is what he wanted out of a web browser is this is a thing that is bi-directional. You are viewing the thing, but you are also editing the thing. And the two are one and the same. Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's something terrible about having something that's so ephemeral that it could just break all the time. But there's something also wonderful about something that you don't have to commit to something. If you are someone who is worried about permanence and or doing something perfectly, it's so nice to know that you can take a bite at it over and over and over again. And it feels like it's whatever your current version wants it to be.
Yeah, which is right for the web.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Wild West that we used to have was a wonderful space.
Yeah, but also we were talking before the recording, and like none of our early websites exist anymore.
Right,
they just are gone.
It's a shame. Yeah, and even if we had the files, it might be hard to bring them up, like Flash files and stuff. I have my original web. I was called robothats.com. I don't know why I went with that. I don't know. I was encouraged in all the wrong ways as a child, but no, it was my first portfolio. It's the one I kind of went out into the world with from Oregon State, and I have it, but I don't have any idea of how I can open it and look at it. It just exists in this little box now, and someday maybe there's a translator that'll happen. I don't know.
I was also a big Flash advocate when I was in high school, and I had to work really hard when I gave my job talk 6 years ago to extract one of my flash files and make it into a modern format. And I don't think the tools to do that exist anymore. I think they're just gone from 6 years ago.
Yeah, things move fast.
Yeah.
But it also allows for me to learn a little bit of acceptance and the Buddhist philosophy of disengaging, letting go.
Yes.
Non-grasping.
It's what you have to do in web design and, frankly, design in general.
Just to maintain your sanity. Yeah. I have to let go of what I did yesterday in order for me to feel okay today. It's a whole practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Tinker is essentially a part of that mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's one of the practical things that come out of this program. I was reading about your thesis too, which I think is a very interesting project. As someone who has been repeatedly blinded by the high visibility LEDs, the much higher visibility LED headlights that we have.
Piercing.
Buy some 80 million lumen like flashlights from Harbor Freight and strap them to the front of your car, and they'll probably be less bright than modern headlights.
That's right. I don't know if we've ever considered just using lasers yet. I feel like we still have some room to grow.
That's when Captain Picard becomes the Borg, he's got that laser pointer on the side of his head that just like pierces the camera. That's the future for us.
That's right. Yes.
He's ahead of the curve.
Yeah. Star Trek in a lot of ways is the future we all dream of. I think eventually, all becoming the Borg is where we're inevitably going.
Yeah, we'll have laser headlights on our head.
Yes, yeah. But my thesis project, it's funny because I had made this dumb see-through screen thing, and I really didn't think much about it again for a long time.
Yeah.
In fact, I was going to make Tinker my thesis project when I realized, okay, this is actually something that I'm already kind of working on. And I started talking to a couple of friends in grad school about maybe doing this together as a business. And that was kind of fun for a little bit. So I pivoted to something else, which had been digging in a little bit into augmented reality. I had sent a piece to an art show in China. I didn't actually go there, but Parsons had a big contingent there, and it was a piece that involved a little bit of sort of like artificial life and design and technology stuff that allowed for me to kind of think about augmented reality. And the more I thought about augmented reality, the more I thought that its applications were really limited, and I was really hoping to come up with ways in which we could detach more. I'd learned about this concept called comm technology. The idea of comm technology is that it is technology that doesn't insert itself into your life, but instead is there and available for you when you need it or want it, or does its thing without your intervention.
Ooh.
Some examples.
I could use some more of that.
Oh, I know. Well, I think it actually came about from decades ago. I think the late 80s, but it's still, I think, if anything, more applicable now. Instead of notifications on your phone that constantly are asking for your attention, the idea of comm technology, some examples might be like a clock on the wall, which seems really basic and obvious, but a clock will not bother you at all unless you need to know what time it is, in which case you can choose to look at it and it will tell you the time, and it does its job perfectly like that. Another example, one of my favorite examples, is a thing that I think almost came to market. It was this smart umbrella that had an LED on the handle, and it was Wi-Fi connected, and it would basically look at the weather report. And essentially, if it detected that there was going to be rain in the forecast for that day, it would glow blue. And if not, it wouldn't. So
I could use this so much.
I know. It just feels so good because the idea is, because I was living in New York and there were definitely times where I'd be gone all day. It was an hour ride each way. It was miles of walking to and fro. And I could not always predict it. And if I remember to check the weather, great. I might remember to grab my umbrella. But I didn't always check. And also, you find out too late and you realize, whatever.
Yeah. In my case, I'm always standing by the door trying to fiddle with my watch, trying to figure out, wait, how do you get to the rain view? There's so many little views that you have to click through.
Right. And always, for me, I was on 3 or 4 hours of sleep and rushing out the door because I was already late.
You pulled an all-nighter too.
Yes, exactly. So it just was never in a mental state in which I was cognizant enough to think to check the weather before I left.
Yeah.
It wasn't raining now, so whatever. If it had been raining, I might have grabbed the umbrella. But the idea, though, that you just don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
That you can walk to your door and it will draw your attention. If you see it glowing, grab it. If you don't, leave it. It's as simple as that. And
that's brilliant.
I love that. I love that there's some sophisticated technologies going on behind it, but the experience for the user is something that is more straightforward than even the analog reality.
Yeah.
That it requires less of you thinking about technology in order for you to engage with it. So I kept trying to think of ways in which we could incorporate that into augmented reality. I had, as a smaller project earlier on, I think maybe my first year of grad school, created these glasses that didn't work. I failed in my engineering, but that essentially would detect ads in your vision and just block them with pixels.
Wow.
Yes, it was
real
just
life ad blocker.
real life ad blocker. That's exactly what I called it.
Oh
And it was great. And it was
God.
wonderful. In concept, I created the code. I managed to do a lot of proof of concepts, but getting these tiny little 1.3 inch LCD panels that I tried to take the back off without breaking to get them to work didn't quite fully make it. But with actual engineering, if you weren't just buying parts from China and then fiddling with them in ways they are not meant to go, I think it could be made. But
this is not an era where we have Apple Vision Pro resolution screens. We frankly don't even really have that now.
Right? Yes.
Did you see that Apple Vision Pro that was on The Price is Right?
No, what?
Oh, it was fascinating. It was one of the, like everybody's at the podiums pricing games. Mm-hmm. So they brought out this Apple Vision Pro. Wow, look at that. It's got virtual reality and it spins around, and then they raised it back up into the ceiling. They were like, okay, what do you think this price for this item will be? And no one said more than $1,200. For the listener, the Apple Vision Pro is $3,500, which I believe the people at the podiums were quite astonished to learn.
Yeah.
It's a mystery why they're not selling more of those, folks.
Yeah. Not everyone can be a winner.
No.
And that's maybe we should have Apple on this show.
Please, Tim Apple, come
Tim
on.
Apple, we need you.
We need
You've
you
got
right
an important
now.
story to share with our young listening audience.
What we were joking about the black turtlenecks, that's unrelated to anyone you knew.
That's right. You pull it off.
Yeah.
So the thesis project, though, was a smart windshield that would essentially do something similar to the ad blocker. It would dim the portions of your vision that were perhaps harmed by oncoming headlights, driving into the sun. It could probably be controlled for a few other things, or to draw your attention to certain things. If there's certain hazards, like someone running in from the side, to be able to just kind of let you know that they're there if you don't see them, but a computer could detect that sort of stuff.
That's absolutely brilliant.
That's what I thought.
Oh.
No. I mean, how do you like it in your car? It really made some waves. I actually did submit it to a couple of car conferences, and I think it was pretty obvious pretty quickly. Actually, one of the people in my grad program, or in one of the partner grad programs, was a car designer. And managed to sit down with them a couple times, and they filled me in a lot. And they basically said, this is great. This would be awesome. But also, you have to be clear. This is not an easy path. This is something that is not just... no one just has this idea. I remember there's that windshield wiper movie. I never watched it, but where the person who invented the windshield wiper and changed the world. But it doesn't just happen that way, where someone has an idea, and then I think it was probably a somewhat bad time for that person also. I'm sure it didn't
most of those stories I feel like go that way.
Yeah. I don't think I'd want to watch the movie where they're like, this person got rich.
No.
Now they're living the life.
The McDonald brothers are not really the hero of the McDonald story.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Ronald is.
See, people think it's Ray Kroc, but Ronald is actually the puppeteer pulling the strings.
Yes, him and Grimace.
Yeah.
I wish, again, this is another one of those things where I wish it was out in the world, but you have to kind of be the right person to get it out in the world. And I am still the person who likes to make the thing. And I think that's kind of part of where I'm going with what I'm working on right now, is just recognizing, okay, I am the maker, figuring out how to get things out in the world, getting better at it.
Yeah.
But it is a thing that I am having to force myself to do. We talked about collaboration earlier, teamwork, dream work. And I am not usually doing that. I'm usually someone who likes to learn things so much that I try to do all the parts.
Yeah.
And that's paid off in a lot of ways. I'm glad I know all the things I know. But it also has been very limiting. And there are some people who are really, really good at the things that I'm less interested in. And I am now, I think, recognizing, like, working with other people has been wonderful. Making the film, which we'll talk about soon, was such a wonderful example of how good things can be when you're working with people who are really good at what they do and love working with each other. It can create such a wonderful atmosphere, and it can make something way better than you can make by yourself.
Yeah, it's a really important thing. Now, in this article where I read about your thesis, they also mentioned that you already had a job Which means that we had already met by this point because you had come to do your talk at Portland State University, interviewing for the interaction design teaching job.
Yes.
And I believe after that talk, Kate had introduced me to you and then told me later that you were the one that she wanted to hire.
She kind of made it clear to me during my interview as well, which was really nice of her. It made me feel really good. It made me feel like this is the place I belonged, and obviously is. I am here now. Is this 12 years later or 13? 12. I'll just be finishing my 13th year.
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, that's horrifying to think that I had been here before that and I'm still here. Oh, no.
Why leave the place you love?
That's fair.
This is the longest job I've ever had by a mile. I don't think I'd ever had a single job for more than 2 years at the very long end of things.
Yeah.
I am someone who likes to do a lot of different things, but teaching enables that.
Yeah. I mean, part of why you went to grad school was teaching. Were you teaching at Parsons? Like, I guess, how did this all come about?
Yeah. I did everything I could while I was there to build up whatever I could in my CV and to just develop the skills to teach.
Yeah.
I had taken some pedagogical classes. I had gotten involved in every single year. The incoming group of grad students does what is called boot camp, which is a 3-week super intensive. It's 9 hours of day in class.
Dear Lord.
Plus probably for a lot of us, 7 or 8 hours of homework per night, 5 days a week for 3 weeks.
No thanks.
It was rough.
I'm gonna pass on that.
It was rough. And I came both with a design and coding background, which were 2 of the 3 segments of what we were learning. So I had a big leg up over some of the people who were coming from neither of those spaces. And I still was getting so little sleep. I was still struggling so much. But of course, the following year, after I'd gotten a year under my belt, I opted into helping be one of the facilitators for boot camp. So yes, it was definitely easier being a facilitator rather than I say that now, but no. My faulty memory is reminding me of a couple of important details that teaching actually is pretty intensive too.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yes.
And you go from having one problem to having like 35 problems very quickly.
Right. Yeah. And so helping debug, and I was doing the code section. That was my area. I only had to teach 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, but there was all of the hours where students were struggling and also just preparing my lessons and being ready to teach a 3-hour class, which at that point I hadn't ever done.
Yeah.
That's a long stretch, and you're trying to cram a lot in 2-3 weeks. So
to be on the code side to it, to know that there are people who do not have any background at all.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a learning curve.
That's a lot of imbalance.
Yes. Yeah. Some people are coming from computer science. Some people have never even considered doing code before.
Wow.
And I think we probably covered in those 3 weeks as much as you might cover in a 10-week normal class at a college level. But it was a lot. It was a lot. And everyone was exhausted, but it was also kind of like trial by fire, feeling a little bit like you're bonded to the people around you. It was great.
Maybe that's a good introduction to grad school, honestly.
Yeah. It's not healthy.
No.
But
none of it is.
No. Yeah. That is something I think we as designers are not traditionally good with, is finding boundaries and figuring out how to have a good balance. But we hardcore encouraged imbalance and unhealthiness. But everyone learned a lot, and that's really all that matters. It did get everyone, though, kind of up to a certain standard for jumping into a pretty intensive, rigorous grad program.
Yeah.
And that was the point of it, and I think it did its job well. But I did that, and I then was able to teach a couple of creative coding classes my second year of grad school as well. So I managed to find every opportunity I could, and those were fun. Those were incredible. It was amazing working with these people who were just as brilliant as anyone. A lot of them had been coming from other careers, and so they were coming with all these interesting, deep experiences, completely varied from one another and from what I had.
Yeah.
They all brought such different perspectives, and it made me so keen on the idea of keeping exploring. Don't. In fact,
Well, that's the secret of why, I mean, for as much work as this job is, like, when I stopped doing it, I was so much less creative. It empties out of you. But like when you're here, as much as, the administrative side is trying to drain you, like seeing people discover new things refills your cup.
It's a drug.
Much. It's there's nothing like it.
Yes.
It's very weird.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the same part of me that made that weird baby gun, but that kind of relishes a little bit of the struggle I see some of my students go through. Because I know, having taught these classes enough, that everyone breaks through at some point. And when I see someone struggling with something that's just like, I can see you're on the cusp, and I can see that you put a lot of time into this, and this feels like it's such a struggle. And they get the basics, but there's some connection that's not quite there, but it's almost there. And then when you see them have that, or you don't get to see them have it, and they come in the next day though just elated, and you just see the sense of relief. Their shoulders are drooped, and they just feel like they solved the most important thing in their life, and all it was is like figuring out how to make an animation work in Figma, or in a coding class, just like, I now understand what variables are. And it's just like, oh gosh, that's great. Like, you have so much further to go, but like, this right here was a mountaintop, and I get to see mountaintop after mountaintop after mountaintop when they go through that.
Yeah. But to go back to like you making that game in Visual Basic when you were like in school still, like that opened up a world to you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's this little thing that sort of starts to snowball and becomes this much bigger thing. That's the secret sauce.
Yeah. And that's something I try to tell my students a lot, is that the design students who I see who are solely focused on design tend to not necessarily be all that inspiring. That, you know, they quite often are very technically capable people. And honestly, I wish I could have used more of that myself. We have such talented students here.
Really, truly.
But I think a big part of why I see so much talent here is that some of them have so many other interests, and they are open to so many things. They're excited about learning things, that it allows for them to have other doors to open, to have connections that they can draw on that no one else can. If you know about Ultimate Frisbee, but also you've got like a bug collection, and also you're into a really weird niche of like Eastern European movies, and you're taking these design classes, suddenly you've got 1,000 new ideas that the person sitting right next to you would never have.
Yes.
And that is something that's going to make your work special. And that's going to make it so that you will never run dry. You will always have more that you can draw on. And as soon as you stop doing those things, it so quickly goes away. You need to be a full person.
You really and truly. And like, I mean, the student that immediately comes to mind is Brandon Braun, who I think we both have taught, who I think I really initially met just bonding over Japanese catalogs from the 1980s, like electronics catalogs, and just the weird density and like compositions that exist nowhere else.
I never had Brandon in class, but I'm a big fan. I know I've seen Brandon's stuff around. It's brilliant.
It's really cool and weird, and it's like, I don't think it would be quite the same without having that little turn of like, oh, this is a totally different visual vocabulary. This catalog full of mini discs.
What I wouldn't give to think like Brandon Braun.
Yeah.
It's so incredible, so interesting. It's so unique. And I think you're right. It's because Brandon cares about things that are outside of just Photoshop and Illustrator and liking other design, but instead is really pulling the meaning from it. Like, it's not just these catalogs and how they look and what they look like. Like, what is the thinking that went there? Like, why did they choose these weird things? According to our standards, why is their flavor of weirdness that way?
Yes.
And the more you're looking for that stuff, the more you absorb it, the more you really pay attention to it.
Yeah.
You can't just passively take the stuff in. You have to care about it. You have to try to understand it a little bit. And once you do that, though, your brain just has all these new compartments of info that you can pull on, all these bits of inspiration that lead to results like Brandon had.
Really and truly.
Yeah.
To back up a bit, though.
Sure.
In order to have gotten this job, you would have started in your last year. People don't realize interviewing for a teaching job is a year-long process. Mm-hmm. Truly, it is
I came out in January
9 months
before my job that started in end of September.
Yeah, and you would have had to put in your application like in October.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So this is all happening as you're developing your thesis, as you're going through your final year, as you're probably doing a lot of teaching out there too.
Yes, yeah. It was an intense period of time.
Flying to the West Coast and back.
Yes, yeah.
And then you get this job.
I know. It was so thrilling. It couldn't have been better. It was everything I wanted. It was not just teaching a graphic design program, which I felt I would have been happy to do, but it was an interaction design. Just what are the chances? There was literally the only one on the market at that point. I couldn't believe that it was happening in the city I wanted to be in, back home where I could, get enveloped within my community, closer to family. It was so amazing to be where I wanted to be, doing the work I wanted to do, and to have someone say, yeah, you could have that.
Yeah.
Out of grad school. I was so lucky. It was nice that it was, I think, a nascent enough field that I don't think I had a lot of competition.
I mean, that's true.
I think the other position that was open at the time, they were hiring for Breyer's position at the same time.
Yes.
I'm positive Breyer had way more people who she was going against compared to me, which I'm glad Breyer got it. The right person got that. But the fact is someone's still in grad school. I was still 6 months from graduating. They had no idea whether or not I actually was going to graduate.
But this is also a thing that other fields, like, in fields where the terminal degree is the PhD, that is something where you're often getting hired while you're still finishing the PhD. Yeah. Admittedly, you have a lot more time there because the only thing you're doing is your dissertation.
Right.
That's it.
And I mean, the other part that makes this a little bit more high stakes here is this is a job for life. Mm-hmm. Well, as long I have tenure
as long
now.
As this university continues to exist.
Yes. So,
which could be as many as 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes. Yeah, I'm rooting for 3. Yes. I'm pulling for it. You know what? I would love to see my students' final projects before having to sign off forever.
I'm just excited to find out which other state institution this gets turduckened into.
Oh my
Will
gosh.
It be OHSU? Will it be OSU? Who knows?
Department of Energy. I think they're doing okay right now.
Yeah.
It could be anything.
Please don't let it be ODOT. Please don't let it be ODOT.
Oh.
Please don't let it be ODOT.
Yes. Oh my gosh. But it was just it seemed too good to be true, honestly. Yeah. The fact that I had gotten the opportunity to come out here, I remember giving my presentation as you have to when you apply for a teaching position. You have to meet with a couple of classes. You might get introduced to a couple of groups. I got to have lunch with some students, but I also had to give a presentation on my work. Yeah. And it was pretty exciting to be able to show off some of the work I had done. But one of the things I was able to show off was a website I had built for a local design studio, Spoke Design at the time, Braveview Day now.
Yes.
And they had been hired to design the website for an apartment building called Cyan. And it was so wild.
Right here on campus.
Yes, exactly. I walked past it just this morning, but what was so wild to me, because I had done that website when I had been living away. I hadn't been back in Oregon for years living here. And during the lunch break, right after I gave the presentation, we walked over to a restaurant over there, and we walked right past Cyan, and it was my first time ever seeing it in person. It was it felt like homecoming. It felt like this amazing thing that brought everything full circle. That was a sign that things were kind of meant to be. And then, just having such a strong connection with everyone here. It was wonderful. It was like hanging out with friends. I'd met all these people for the first time that day, and all of a sudden I was just surrounded by people who I was just having so much fun with, laughing, and we went out to pizza for dinner, and I was supposed to meet up with some more friends because I lived around here and
I can't imagine doing that after how long those interview days are.
Oh my gosh. And I was coming from the East Coast too, so I was also I'd been up since I think 3 a.m.
And listeners, they don't give you a day to recover before you do that. You fly in that night, and then you are you have an overnight if you're lucky.
Then a 7 a.m. breakfast interview before everyone has to go to their classes.
Yeah. So, and then the pizza ends at 8 p.m.
Yes.
And you're doing things the entire time.
Yeah, pizza didn't end until 10 p.m.
Oh no.
Which was wonderful. That's the thing. I had to tell my friends, I'm sorry, I'm still out. I'm having too much fun, and this is great. But I didn't get dropped off back at the hotel until after 10, and then I went out for drinks after that, which
God.
I was a younger man.
Which is truly like 3 a.m. East Coast time.
Yeah. It was
no good.
I was on a high though. At that point, I was just feeling so good. After I got through my presentation, it just felt like it was coasting a lot. I met with the dean, who's basically just telling you, here's what's going to happen. I didn't have to answer basically any questions. I met with the chair, who was just friendly, and then I got to go to pizza, where we all just drank beers and hung out like friends. So it was a wonderful experience, and it led to more than a decade of
of dreams, some might say.
Yes.
To steal a bit from Blank Check Podcast.
Yes.
But yeah, so you are starting here as junior faculty. What do you end up doing, like in your early days?
Right. Yeah, I did just all sorts of. So for class stuff, I was brought in to kind of expand the interaction design stuff. There were a couple of I'm going to say design in quotes. They were mostly web coding classes,
Yeah.
but real basics of HTML and CSS kind of.
Which was doing better than my undergrad was doing, where we were being taught in Dreamweaver.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let Dreamweaver do the work.
It was written into curriculum. You can't change it.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. No, fortunately, we'd moved past that. Does Dreamweaver still exist?
It sure
That's what I
does,
thought. Okay, yes.
unfortunately.
Wow.
They have bothered to compile a universal binary of it, I learned yesterday.
They've invested in Dreamweaver.
Truly.
Yes. Yeah, the way of the future.
It's got to be the way of something.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine the person who gets hired at a new firm or an old firm, definitely an old firm, but as a new employee, having gotten to play with all the other toys at the disposal and realizing, oh no, this is a Dreamweaver house.
Yeah.
You have to use it while you're here. This is your life now.
You're working on MySpace, my friend.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Everything here is Dreamweaver.
But I was expanding that, and I expanded a couple of other actual design classes. And since then, we've added a few more to the curriculum. We now have, I think, 7 classes that are kind of devoted to that. But we now, I think, have a stronger connection to the motion graphics stuff. And we are finding out the creative coding class.
Yeah.
Our colleague Stephen Lee has been teaching that. I got to teach that a couple of times, and that was really fun. But it's fun to see how we are maybe letting go of the technological focus of it. We're introducing more technology, but at the same time, we're trying to do it, I think, through more of a creative designer lens and allowing people to use it as a means to an end. And that's honestly how I think about it still. Even though I spend so much of my day doing code, it is purely a way to create something that allows for someone to make something or for me to express a product in some way.
Well, and I think that also speaks to the work that you're doing outside of teaching too. Like, I mean, you kept Tinker going.
Yeah.
You built a game. Like, you know, like you've still kept a really diverse portfolio of different kinds of design and technology products in your research.
Yeah.
One of the earliest projects that I actually remember from you was we have this awful thing here called the DARS report. Many universities use it to generate, you know, like an overview of your degree, and you had built essentially a way of styling it so you could actually see, because it basically output like
just raw courier.
Yeah, I mean,
pages
like, truly,
and pages.
It seemed like it was maybe a teletype backend.
I think that might have been where it came from. Yeah,
and this allowed it to have some styling so you could actually see what it is that you were missing.
Right. Well, I did it. A lot of what I sometimes make starting for me and then realize that this could be helpful. And so I try to make it something that is more generally applicable and approachable. But it was just this completely unformatted text. I was having to do advising. This is part of the responsibilities that we got hired to do here.
Yes.
3 hours of office hours every week. And I was looking at these things week after week. And the amount of embarrassment I felt every time a student came in and said, "Hey, can you help me?" And the look I must have had on my face saying, "I hope." You definitely have to bear with me, but we might not know whether the advice I'm giving you is good or not.
Yes.
Based on me staring at this 12-page long, completely unformatted script that just is really ambiguous and makes it so hard to find what you're looking for.
Well, let's see. Here's this letter code. Let's look down in the key. Oh, this isn't in the key, so I have no idea what this is signifying. It must be something important, though.
That's right. And also just, I've looked at this dozens of times, and yet it still takes me, a full 3 minutes to find where the graphic design stuff is. And I should have this down by now, but no, just every single time kind of having to translate in front of them what this stuff meant and think through it and try to keep it all. And also, it's just convoluted requirements that we have at Portland State. So remembering what those were, trying to piece everything together while looking at it and writing some stuff down, but then thinking as I'm writing it down, this is absolutely incorrect. Just wanting to look like I know what I'm doing, just so that they can have maybe a little confidence that the help that they're getting is going to be beneficial.
I think my first year doing advising, I actually had a physical copy of our catalog, the bulletin, back when they still made physical copies of that.
Yes.
So that I could flip through and reference like, oh, that's okay. All right, there we go.
Yeah.
Like cross-check. But that's nonsense to have to do.
Oh, absolutely.
This was an incredible tool that let you kind of do an end run around all that.
It just brought some design to it. It brought a little hierarchy to it.
Yeah.
It added a little bit of a type structure, so you could find categories better. It allowed you to collapse these sections so that you could not be looking at all of the content at the same time, but instead focus on the part that you needed to pay attention to at that moment.
Yeah.
And I do think that it allowed for people to be able to see it and understand it in a way that they never had.
It's a very valuable thing. I mean, they did take it down.
Yeah, I was asked to take it down immediately after they found out about it. I didn't.
Well, they had promised you, I believe, that they were imminently going to roll out the same change, and then it took them 2 years to do it.
Yes, I was brought on to, I think, maybe 2 different committees tasked with this, but...
Maybe that's part of the issue?
Yes, exactly. The bureaucracy of all of academia, but I think Portland State maybe in particular, is that you make a committee in order to never have to do something.
Yeah.
And it's better now, I guess. The amount of times I look at DARS is a little less than it used to be, because I think a lot of times I know what I'm looking for so I can find it, but also just the students are coming in at different points compared to what we had. We also have a more streamlined degree than we had back then.
We do, and I think that is like weirdly a part of design too, is like making this a structure that is more easily understandable and completable.
Yes, yeah. And you learn as you do.
Yeah.
And I think that we had good reasons for everything we've done along the way. It's just frustrating when you find out that there's a better way to do it only after you've done it the hard, bad way. The hard, bad way. That's like the story of my memoir.
I mean, truly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many options for what the title of this one's going to be, but that's a good one. One of the more left field projects that you've been doing lately has been in film.
Yes.
And you've been doing a lot of things that are very much outside of even the projects that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
I guess, first of all, where did that begin? And then how did you end up doing all these different roles?
I guess my first bit of advice I'll give before I start explaining that is just be careful who you marry. They weirdly have some influence on your life. I've learned a lot about myself over the last 8 blissful years, but my wife, Jen Wolfe, Jennifer Wolfe, if you look her up, is a writer.
An amazing writer.
She's a really good writer. My favorite writer. Not just because I'm married to her. She is a fun, fantastic person to be around. She's got such brilliant ideas, and she's so talented and capable.
Yeah.
And she had been considering switching into film. She's published some books, and some opportunities had kind of come up. During the pandemic, we had made a short film. It was sort of a...
Starring you.
Yes, yeah. Thom Hines, actor / producer / teacher as well, I guess.
Maybe our first guest that has an IMDb profile, I learned.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm trying... Okay, that is the thing. I am trying to collect as many profiles as I can. I've got a Board Games Geek profile. I've got an IMDb profile. My professor profile.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh. But I take so much joy. I have generally pretty good reviews, not to brag.
Do we want to spend some... I have it here.
Oh, do you?
Oh, yeah.
Great,
so
yes.
You did send this
No,
to
I've told
all of
everyone
us.
I know. I told my family. I've been bringing it up to strangers at bars. I just want everyone to know this wonderful thing. Whoever wrote it, I know animosity. I don't know exactly. I think I know who it is, but I don't.
There were a lot of giveaways, I will say.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's one of those things where I know myself well enough, and I know what this is saying enough to take what I need to from it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to let you read it.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So first of all, just so you know, this was a 1 out of 5 star rating.
Not the best.
No.
Not where you want to be.
No. But so I knew going into it, it was a bright pink 1.0, as low as you can go. So I can, but it actually kind of surprised me at the beginning.
Your difficulty is a 3.0 though. So.
Yeah. Well, the sadist in me takes a little pride in that. But it starts off rather sweet. Tom is an insanely talented UI UX. Insanely. Tom is an insanely talented UI UX designer and good about helping students. However, he is the definition of a know-it-all, which I love that you bolded this here. I'm reading from Sean's notes. This is so amazing. Like, Sean made sure to just emphasize this part. However, he is the definition of a know-it-all. It is pretty sad that he is completely incapable of thinking critically or logically based on facts, especially at his age when he should know better.
Now, I don't know what this person, I have no idea who it is. I don't know what this person thinks the job of professor entails, but it does seem like knowing things is sort of a core, I would say, thing that they're looking for.
Some people come for the knowledge. I've had some students. I actually told both of my classes about this the day after I found out about it. So I wasn't even fishing for compliments. I really, really love that this is a view of me. This is like a persona I can carry with me in the world sometimes. It's just this asshole know-it-all, but also a complete idiot. Yes.
Yeah, it is the dichotomy that is in this. That is so strange.
And the compliment at the beginning is so glowing and so unearned. It's not that I might be a talented UI UX designer. I don't think this person has any way of knowing that, though. Maybe they looked me up. Maybe they spent some time getting to know who I was, and maybe that's why they have this informed opinion.
Maybe they're just doing the shit sandwich for you, where you gotta butter that bread on top.
They left the other slice of bread off, though.
No, this is an open face, but the wrong way.
Okay, yes.
You got just shit in your hand in this sandwich.
Oh my God, yeah. So
the health department's gonna shut down this sandwich restaurant.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a lot of buyers anyway. Might shut itself down. It's not the best critique method. I don't know if this is going to give me the advice in a way that will change much, but I also just am not sure what I'm supposed to take from it.
No.
I don't know what other people are even supposed to take from it. Fortunately, I don't know. I am secure enough in myself that it only amused me and pleased me so much. I really have been telling as many people as I can about it.
It's delightful.
Yes. It's now replaced the other really low rating I had in my Rate My Professor scoring, which was also one of those just like, oh man, this is so brutal, but also just everyone should know about it. I'd start sometimes terms by saying like, hi, I'm Tom, here's the syllabus, and just so you know what you're getting into, let me read one review from Rate My Professor. Just because it was so good. And I don't check it all that often. I had my first review in 2 years, and it was just
Rate My Professors is kind of a dead website too.
Yeah. But now people think they know who I am. And that's great.
Please review bomb Tom positively, please.
A positive review bomb.
Positive 5-star review.
No.
And this show too.
Oh yes, yes, absolutely. Do that more.
More.
That one has consequences. Rate My Professor is purely for me to share with my friends.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah. I don't think any actually some students apparently do look at it. I don't know why.
I mean, I used to look at it, but that was 15 years ago.
Yeah,
when I was a student.
I can't imagine that. It's like Amazon reviews. These can't be trusted.
No, they really they couldn't be trusted back then.
Except for the 5-star reviews. But it's wonderful. It's wonderful. But back to the film, though.
Back to the film.
The film. I am and have always been, as you've heard, someone who is excited about trying out new things and going into as many fields as possible, learning new tools, understanding new ideas. So when we made the short film, it seemed like this wonderful kind of stepping stone. It felt doable. It was 14 minutes long. I did some of the music for it, which is basically me holding down spooky sounding synth keys on a MIDI keyboard. It did the job and got us into a bunch of film festivals, and Jen won an award for best screenplay on it. It was good.
Wow.
So when an opportunity came for her to be able to rewrite a script that was not so tight and turn it into something that was a little bit more horror-y, it was kind of one of those things like, this seems like a big commitment, but seems like a wonderful opportunity. We underestimated the commitment part and we overestimated the opportunity parts. But a
feature-length film,
oh my gosh,
kind of famously complicated.
Yes. Yeah. That said, I don't regret it. It was such an amazing experience, especially for the, oh my gosh, I think we did it in, I keep forgetting, 9 or 11 days. I think it was 9 days.
Wow.
We were originally going to do it. They wanted us to do it in 5 days, which is insane.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, no,
that's a kind of complicated film.
Yes, it was incredibly complicated. In 2 weeks, we turned an old Clogs and More retail space into a large, I think it was about a 3,000 square foot space, maybe 4,000 square foot space, into a 5-room massage. The name of the movie is called Happy Ending. Yeah. It comes out in streaming services June 27th. So
end of this month.
Yes, you should all go and watch it. Read any issues about it's about people working in the sex industry a little bit, but it's more about relationships. It's marked as a horror movie, but it's lightly horror. It's more, you saw it.
Yes. I think more horror funny. Comedy is the right zone.
People laughed more than they cringed, but they didn't like look away because there's not a lot of terrifying things in it. Yeah. It's got some tension.
It's there's some creepy moments.
Yeah. Nevertheless, we built that all in about 2 weeks, which was crazy because designing for a film set is so much more intensive than you would think.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you're filling up your dorm room or something. In order for something to look right on film, it has to be 5 times more densely filled. And our set designer, another person who's taught here before, Brittany Connolly, in the art practice program, she designed the space. She designed the wallpapers, printed them out herself, and she went so far above and beyond. But it looks incredible. This space is just from another world, and it feels very cinematic. And it was so amazing to be working in that space. But then to work with like gaffers and really talented, capable actors, and we had, I think, 15 people on the cast and 15 people on the crew about each, just showing up every day and being part of this machine that was just go, 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 12 hours days. And those days we never had a moment to just sit still for a second. We had to just, 12 hours was barely enough. It wasn't until I think the last or second to last day when someone commented, I've never been on a shoot that ended on time, that Jen realized, like, oh, I could have been keeping people after this whole time. I don't know. Like there's no union telling us what we have to or can't do, but we did try to respect people's time. And we did also just know that it's exhausting to work until 11 p.m. And then have to get up and do it all over again. There were 0 days off during this whole thing, so you just went, and it was extremely exhausting. I was also staying after for a couple hours every day, backing up all the data. So I wasn't getting home till 1 a.m. And then we were usually getting up at 6 a.m. to start prepping for getting to set. And I was still teaching at the time. 3 of those shoot days I had to go in and teach, and then go straight from campus to going on set where I was doing production stuff.
Dear Lord.
It felt like grad school again, but it was again one of those times where during those 9 days at least was really invigorating.
Yeah.
It was exhausting. I don't know how people survive doing this regularly, but for me it was so wonderful. We were so tired, and yet we all just were so happy to be part of something like this.
Yeah, well, it is kind of weirdly the ultimate expression of your practice, where you have the team coming together and building something, but then you also have the moments where you are working solo. And you're editing this movie, and you're composing music for this movie.
Yes. Yeah. When everyone else got to walk away from the film and go on with their lives, I still had another year plus of working on it.
Yeah.
It was 12 different versions of the film that came up before we ended up with our final hour 42 long thing. One entire Christmas break was devoted to all making music. It was just morning till night, creating an hour of soundtrack space. And I'm not a musician, so all of that. I don't know.
I think that album art that we looked at earlier begs to disagree.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, the gangsta butts. I'm more of a gangsta butt than a musician, perhaps. But there
are 2 types of people in this world.
Yeah, but I loved doing it. I just wish I could have done only that. And that might have been a little bit better. And finding that balance is a little tricky, but sometimes you just have to carve out the space. Sometimes you just have to do the thing on top of everything else in order to do the thing that you want to and love. And I would definitely be up for making another movie again. The situation has to be different for me to get there.
Yeah, understandably.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, like you've learned how to do it, and you have the final product. This is like a huge moment because people are going to be able to go out and see it.
Yes, yeah, and that's so exciting, especially compared to a lot of my other projects that never end or that require constant things, or will just disappear into the ether after a couple of years. This is something that is done.
Yeah, it's
done, and it's out there, and there's no changing. And I've seen it so many times, and every time I watch it with people, I just get so excited seeing their reactions.
Yeah.
And
I was at the premiere, and it had a very hot premiere. Like, people were really into it.
It was so fun to watch. It was the most fun I'd ever had watching it after having seen it probably in bits and pieces hundreds of times.
Yeah.
It was a thrill. It was better than when we premiered in LA last October. It was just such a wonderful crowd. It was such a good group of people. But they all just were on board for it. And that's something that's so special, that you get to make something and to actually be witness to the people who get to enjoy it. A lot of the design stuff we make, we put out in the world, and it goes up on a billboard or it goes up on the web. And maybe there's a lot of people who are enjoying it, but we don't ever necessarily get to be party to that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's something really special about this make-believe playland we call film that's just geared towards sharing and an experience that is not practical, and it's about the feelings that you get and that you get to share those with other people. That was truly wonderful.
That is beautiful. I feel so lucky to be part of your crew here too.
Absolutely.
If people want to see the movie, where can they go to find it?
They could see it on Amazon. I'm not exactly sure if it's Prime or if it's. I should know more about this by now. I don't think any of us in the crew know fully, and it's going to be on Tubi and a couple other streamers.
Hey.
Again, not confirmed, but June 27th is when it's supposed to come out on all the platforms it's available. Just have Google tell you which platforms, but Amazon definitely.
Where can people find more about you, Thom?
Oh, I hope they don't. The best way to get to know me is to follow my wife's Instagram. No, I don't do the socials very good. I can be found, though, at thomhines.com, where you can see a little bit of who I am and what I've made. And I think a lot of who I am is rooted in what I've made. And I make a lot of weird random tools and a lot of tools for coders and tools for people to just make things.
Yeah.
I like to open up doors for other people. And so that's where I'm at. That's where you can find me.
And of course here too.
Oh yeah. Enroll at portlandstatepdx.edu
Yes.
and you can take my classes for many thousands of dollars.
Hey, but we see almost 3% of each credit hour.
That's right.
Dollar-wise,
That's right.
So that's
yeah.
exciting.
Going to the creators.
Oh.
Or just sneak in.
Actually, I think that's how we got everything stolen.
Yes,
so
I
maybe
think so.
don't do that.
Don't sneak in. We do have locks. We have more locks now.
We have.
Don't even try it.
It's so secure now.
Yeah.
Your head would spin. Well, thank you so much, Thom, for being here.
Thank you.
I cannot thank you enough for both being a guest and for helping out tech wise. You're a superhero.
You're a gem.
Well, thank you. And also, hey, thank you out there to anyone who is listening to this. If you got a moment, please give us a rating, a review, a subscription wherever you heard it. Please 5 stars. Don't give us the joke 1-star review. Seriously, that is a bummer. But the biggest thing that you can do if you want to help out the show is spread the word. Tell a friend about, what we're doing here. If there's maybe somewhere else that you would rather hear the show than where you're listening to it right now, you can visit our website, dididothat.design, coded with my own 2 hands on Webflow, so not coded. And there you can check out all the options. That's also where you can find some good images that go along with each and every episode. This has been Did I Do That? I'm Sean Schumacher, and as we always say at the close of every episode,
I guess so.
I guess so. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Amazing. This is Sean here. If you're wondering why this episode was a little late, we actually did do a good job of getting this in the can in time. What I realized, though, after the fact, after I recorded it, is that I did refer to Thom Hines as Tom Hanks. It's the tireless Tom Hanks.
Hey, everyone.
And then in trying to record a pickup, I did it again. It's the tireless Tom Hanks. Fuck me. I did it again. And I think this thing actually worked good too. So
Okay.
I'll take 2 things that work over 1 thing that doesn't work or 0 things that work. So
If need be, I can always come back and just re-voice over my part. I'll just...
we'll ADR you into this
exactly.
episode.
And I feel like throughout I had some improvements I was considering.
Yeah.
Now
This is how much the film vocabulary has already taken over your brain.
Yes.
You just have to stop yourself from George Lucasing everything.
Oh my gosh.
Re-recording your parts with funnier jokes. And
Oh my gosh. No, see.
maybe there's just a big space llama that walks into the scene and sticks out its tongue. Wow.
Is that something we could have happen in this podcast?
Why not?
Okay.
It's an audio medium. Who's to say what's happening in the
It's
room or
happening
not?
right now.
Whoa,
Oh my
space
gosh.
llama.
Space llama. Watch out, the laser eyes.
Oh, it did a fart. Oh no.
Space fart.
Well, I'm George Lucas, and I space farts. I have a 16-page treatise on sort of how space farts work. Now, people may know that if you fart in outer space, you don't hear a sound, but I think with the technology that they have sort of developed through space magic, you actually can hear the farts, it turns out. And that's what the Force is. And I think what you'll find is actually the Wookiees are, sort of a species that is very sensitive to the midichlorians. And that's why they often are, I can't,
This is amazing.
It's feeling
This
too
is so-
realistic is
I
what's
know,
starting to
I know.
be a problem.
I
didn't know I had that voice in me either.
It was mind-blowing. I really felt like George Lucas was right here with his head up his own ass. It was amazing.